project with you. My grandmother and mother kindly gifted me some patchwork fabric bits and materials for my birthday last month, and I, after some kind of deliberation about what I want to make, I decided to make a jacket. Quilted jackets and coats have been everywhere. They are very, very cool garments, and I've always really enjoyed the look of them. In the beginning, I had an idea. I thought I would make the centerpiece of the jacket a sun. I love the sun, and I love the imagery of a sun, and also a lot of the patchwork fabric that I got was on the kind of yellow-white scale. So I wanted to create something that would match that kind of colour scheme. So my original design was easy. I had an octagon, and then from the octagon I had the 8 rays of sunshine, right? That worked out pretty well. It's a little wonky, a little being an understatement, but it kind of works. It's an approximate octagon. It does have 8 strips and tips, and it, you know, it just about kind of aligns with everything. However, what happened after was I decided to put these on the top like that and make an extra step for myself, because all of this had to be sewn together, obviously, and then that line had to align with this line. If I had done this the smart way and made a block of 1, 2, 3 or 4 pattern pieces, and those would have then been sewn together, it might have worked. Because I worked from the center out, these really did not align. Sewing this corner was an absolute pain, and basically I just decided that it wasn't worth it. So after sewing 3 of these on, I've taken them out and seam ripped them all. I've also now seam ripped them separately because I'm going to make it easier for myself, and I'm just going to put the one there. So eventually I'm going to have a big octagon that is then much easier for me to work from. What I'm doing for the pattern is, it's going to be a fairly short jacket. Let me show you this again. It's going to be a fairly short jacket, something along these lines, with a tie waist, a small little pocket. I was testing out the different patchwork kind of ideas on how that might look like. I think I prefer this step by step for the sleeves, and I think I prefer the kind of organized squares for the body. So that's what we're rolling with. Otherwise, the pocket is just going to be a little one on the side, and it's going to have a tie waist, simple V-neck, curvy bottom scalloped edges, and it's also double-sided. One of the things I really wanted for this jacket is to be quite wearable for quite a few different occasions with quite a few different outfits, and it being double-sided obviously majorly helps with that point. So one side is going to be this sun yellow and white patchwork, the other side is just going to be a simple light beigey colour all across. I'll show you the other fabric as well. And hopefully that's also going to make it a little easier to quilt overall, because I'll have the under fabric on straight away. It'll just come together a little faster. Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to see. So let's get started on reapplying the corners for the sun, and then we'll go from there. What I'm doing is I'm attaching this to here. So I need to sew these right sides together first. I have a little point made in pencil that I use to show me, okay, where that needs to hit the other corners. And then when I hit that corner, I twist it under the sewing machine to align the other side with the other side, and then sew up that way. It's tricky, but it works. Just about. Okay, so that actually went better than I anticipated. It was still tricky in the corners. It's always tricky in the corners. Again, would have been much easier if I had done this in blocks, but overall not too bad. What I'm going to do now is make squares, just cut squares that are this width and obviously square, so the same height. And those should be much easier to sew on because they're just squares. And hopefully that way we can kind of fill in the back. I brought tea. The last time we saw each other, I was cutting these out. I now have 8 squares and these are going to be attached to the edges of my octagon. I have a whole big octagon. It looks great. It's much tidier than it was before, and I need to decide how I'm putting these on, but I'm going to attach them right sides together to then have an octagon with feet, basically. So I'm going to have eight separate feet. I'm trying to be smart about this and wondering if it's easier to sew these and the corners together first so that these are nice straight lines, and then stick them onto the octagon. And I think I'm going to do that because I've learned from last time we want to be making blocks and then adding them together so that I don't end up having to do all the little corners and edges. So I think I'm going to do that first, and then potentially even having maybe 2 in a row, having a square, a triangle and a square, because the next one is going to look like this, for example. They're much bigger than they need to be, but anyways. Lots of seam allowances. Yeah, so then sticking these two together and sewing this on first and then sewing the whole thing all around potentially, or kind of one half and then the other half. Maybe, but I'll figure it out. So I'm gonna do that now. I might figure out how big these need to be, the triangles, cut those, and then stick it all together and then sew it all together. That is one seam allowance with these. How do you triangle? I have now put together the strips. So I have one strip and the other half. They're exactly the same. And then obviously the sun. So what I need to do now is sew them together. This is the biggest part of this whole thing and my biggest worry. Although I did do this in blocks and it was much easier. So I'm hoping that just kind of putting them together is going to be okay. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it won't be too bad. That was some of the most stressful sewing I have ever done, but let's have a look at the result, shall we? You know what? Not too bad. Yeah, that is not too bad. I have the sun and I have the background. It kind of matches. What does bother me, but that was my kind of initial mistake in the first triangles that I did, I basically forgot that obviously in the triangle I need to reach a point. So what I forgot to do is kind of give seam allowance to the tip of the triangle, which was my issue with the first one, because then I was just kind of assuming and I was sewing it with other triangles and I just ended up having a lot of the sharp edges out, like they didn't, nothing actually met, which is possibly why I had so much spare fabric as well, and I still kind of do in some of the areas, because they only met right kind of at the tip. So the tip, hold on, they only met at the tip, see, well actually they should have been meeting somewhere here in the middle, somewhere in the middle, so that that would close nicely, and then I would have extra seam allowance on the top to sew around with. However, again, I've already kind of made this an issue, and the only real result of it is that I have unsharp rays of the sunshine. Like, they're not sharp edges, they're just a bit rounded off. But actually, I am not particularly bothered. They ended up being quite nicely aligned with all the sharp edges on the outside, which is fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the other half. I think I'm going to sew on, yeah, I might sew on the rest of the circle first, so the seam half circle to half circle, and then do the same process again for the other half. And I think I'll leave it there for today. Ta-da! What I did afterwards was I cut out more of the squares to create the front part of the bodice. I just sewed the squares together in lines, kind of aligned them in a way that felt nice and looked nice, and then I sewed 3 rows of those together to kind of create the biggest part of the front bodice. And then I did a similar thing for the sleeves, so I cut out a lot of kind of narrow strips, and I actually followed a tutorial for this and for how to make the herringbone patch. I'll link it down below in the description. I have my back piece, both of my front pieces, and now both of my sleeve pieces. So these are the herringbone-ish pieces. So I'm theoretically ready to cut the pattern out. This obviously will need a little bit more on the edges. I'm gonna square those out and add in the shoulders. But those are only small additions of color. It's not much. What I want to do first is cut out the pattern out of the other fabric, so the neutral one. And as soon as I do that, I can then put it together, see if it actually fits and works nicely, and then I'll do this one, just because the other one I'm less precious about. I have more of it, I have so much of that fabric. Well, with the quilting I want to be completely sure that before I cut it out the shape is great and the pattern works. So I'll do that, I'll show you the cutting, and then we'll go from there. Welcome to the hallway. I wanted to show you how I made the pattern, kind of, show you. So I have a jacket, this jacket that I really love, and I took a piece of paper and I kind of drew out the basic shape. This is my center back piece, so I have a regular kind of narrow neckline and a nice gentle sloping shoulder, which is something that I really wanted to keep. Gentle kind of continuous armhole, and I definitely wanted to shorten this a little bit, so I just took away a little and rounded off the corner. For the front piece I then did the same, but I copied the shoulder, I made the armhole a little bit more angled, so there's a little bit more of an angle. And I lengthened it at the front because I want this to fold over. I want it to fold over one another, so I just lengthened it a little bit, and the back is always narrower than the front to make space for the bust and everything. So I lengthened the front, and I also gave it a V-neck, which is what I'm kind of trying to go for, so I have a V-neck there. With the sleeve, I lost it, however, I did exactly the same thing. I just kind of copied the same shape and direction of this. Lengthened it a little bit, just because I want to make sure I have enough length there. And I think I'm actually going to be sewing it in one. I'm going to make this one piece, just to make it a bit easier for the actual construction Good morning, it's a new day and I will be pinning the cream bodice together that you've seen me cut out yesterday. Ooh. So I will probably pin the shoulder seams first, fit in the sleeves and see if it fits me, and then I'll show you, basically. Okay, first thoughts. I feel like a Jedi, which is a good thing, in my books anyways. I like it. I really like it. I like the length. I'm really a big fan of the length. I do have a few thoughts. So I closed the sides and it's like the sleeves seem to sit nicely. I closed one to just make sure that it sits nice. And it seems to be okay. I love the dropped shoulder. That's exactly what I wanted, like the nice long kind of swooped draping shoulder, and it's gonna sit like this. So it's gonna be much smoother at the top. The V sits really nicely. I don't know if it needs to be a little deeper actually, as in if I actually close it like thoroughly, completely, to be the wrap, because it will kind of wrap from there to there. That's the closure. That'll be a bow. I don't know if that's too high, but then maybe in a jacket that's kind of nice, so I'm covered. I'm not convinced, we'll see. But otherwise that feels really kind of nice and smooth. Yeah, and I have a little pocket. It's looking nice, the back is nice and smooth and jackety. I wanted this. I didn't want it to be you know, I want it to be a nice jacket, and it feels like wide and cozy and comforting, which I do really want it to be like a cool jacket, but I do also want it to be a jacket that's just like, oh, you know, feels nice.
So now that I knew that the pattern worked, I also cut it out of the patchwork pieces and I started sewing them together. I attached the shoulder seams together, right sides together, and then attached the sleeves the same way. In this clip you can also see the mustard fabric that I used for the edge of the sun to kind of fill out the space to make the whole pattern for the back piece.
Afternoon. I have finally put together the beast. So I have put all 3 layers on top of each other. So I have the yellow layer, the wadding in the middle, which is just like a fluffy layer, and then the cream, and they are pinned kind of all around the edges. But also I do have a few pins in the shoulder seams to connect all 3, and I might do a few basting stitches here and there. I know I really should, but with the amount of time this has taken me, I really don't want to. So we'll see what happens. Either way, I'm gonna start quilting. I still haven't fully decided on what kind of quilt pattern I want to do. I think it's gonna be wavy. At least up to kind of the front and back, but I did really want to do the sun. I wanted to do the center sun in the kind of circle, so I might do that first actually, because I know for sure that that's something I want to do, and at least that will be in place, and then the rest will hopefully move a little easier because it won't be as like floppy everywhere, you know. Either way, wish me luck. This is the second to last step. Last step will be to bind the whole thing and finish up the seams, but yeah, a big step ahead, so watch this space. Deep breaths. Okay. The only way I can kind of make this work is when I fold up the sleeves and the rest. So I folded all of that up and I kind of always just like shove it through the sewing machine, trying not to push it away. That's how we roll around here now. because it's gonna look so good. It's gonna look so good. I don't know how much you can see. Whoa. You can't see any. Oh, you can see a little bit. The center's circled. Sides are coming all the way up to the edges. I have 2 more to do, so 4 more lines, and then I'll leave it for today. I have decided that because of it being double-sided, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the tie, because I want it, yes, I want it this way. So the tie is going to be here, tying to this side, if that makes sense. And therefore, I might as well do a long, long strip of tie, so that then the other side is going to close the other way. That makes sense? I think so. I hope so. Because on the other side, it doesn't really matter which way I close it. And on this side, I prefer these. So I want these to be on top. So I'm just going to kind of be clever about it and do like a double length tie through that seam. And then we'll see what happens. I don't know how one binds around that, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out when I get there. So I've got 2 of those. I'm gonna iron those before they go in. Yeah, these will be my little ties. My cute little ties. Isn't that cute? Oh, very sweet. Okay. So as you have just seen, I have finished the bias tape. So I've attached the bias tape all around the body. I have already closed it on the underarms. So the underarms are completely closed all the way to the side. We also now have that side of the tie from the side seam that's attached. And I have kind of sewn it, you know, smoothly onto the cream all around. So the whole perimeter of the thing. What I'm going to do, because for the underarms I sewed it on the machine, but it's not the cleanest everywhere. It will do okay, but the armpits are a little bit, were quite tricky, and it's okay because it's in the armpit. You're not really going to be able to see it. But I'd quite like the rest of the body to be quite clean. So what I'm going to do, actually, I have decided I'm gonna sew it in hand, basically. I have trimmed all the edges, so everything is kind of trimmed down to size, and I'm just gonna wrap it around and kind of blind stitch it in by hand, and then we're done, basically. I'm gonna do the same thing for the sleeves. I haven't done the edge of the sleeves yet, but I'll do the same for the sleeves, and then we're actually finished. This is so exciting. I'm gonna leave the pockets for now because this video is already long enough, and also because I don't really need them, and I can always attach them on top anyways. They were always gonna be top stitched, so I don't really mind, and I'm gonna just do that at another point. Look at this. How exciting! This ties. There you go. You guys, this is so good. I love it. I love it. One half. If I don't want to wear this half and I want to be more exciting, switcheroo. Look at this. Whee! Whee! I'm so excited. This ended up much better than I imagined. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Hopefully you enjoyed the process. There will be more. So if you would like to continue seeing things like this, please subscribe, like the video if you did like it, and I'll see you soon. Bye everyone.